talking about basic terminology. We're just kind of dipping our toe into the water of nutrition. We were talking about, for example, the difference between digestible and bioavailable. Remember, digestible is how easy is it for your body to break stuff down. If it is very, very easy, is it high or low digestible? It's highly digestible, very easy for your body to break stuff down. An example, well, really, we would like stuff that's highly digestible all the time. But it's super duper uber important for like puppies. When the small intestinal guys are still figuring out their job and still figuring out what they're supposed to be doing. We don't want to give them a whole lot of work. If we have an animal with a gastrointestinal disorder, we don't want them to have to work very hard, and so we'll give them food that's very highly digestible. Bioavailable is the amount of a nutrient that's already been made available, but how much of that nutrient is your body using? Just because it's available and we have a single Lego does not mean that your body's going to use it. You have conditions like malabsorption, things that affect the small intestine, enteritis, parvo, things like that, different viruses. And so that's going to be the percentage of what does your body use of what's been made available. We talked about my favorite word, gluconeogenesis, which was a what? Yeah, the formation of new sugars. We have internal gluconeogenesis, which is what I am doing, performing before your very eyes. This is where you are breaking down stored energy to dump into your blood. It goes to your liver converts it into currency, dumps it into your blood. Everyone gets paid. I have not eaten breakfast this morning. My body is still working on what did I have? Chicken Alfredo last night for dinner.
Yeah. So my question is, the diabetics, when the sugar goes high, that's overpayment?
So that's a great question. So let me address that, because diabetes is a really interesting disease. Really interesting. If you are a diabetic, you don't have the ability to produce this stuff called insulin.
Mine produces too much. My sugar goes down.
So you're hypoglycemic.
Yes.
So here's what happens with a diabetic, though. Your pancreas produces insulin. Okay, so if I am a well, no, I'm not going to wish that on myself. I have the random person here that's diabetic. Actually, I have a really funny story. So, just for me. It was just for me. I'm not even going to tell you the funny story. I'm just going to say funny story and then go on.
Doug just remembered something.
So,
now we got to hear the funny story.
All right, I'll tell you the funny story. So several years ago, so my significant other works for a wireless broadband company that is based in Canada. And the corporate office is in fact in this tiny town that was 5 miles from where my aunt and uncle lived. So when he would have to go up to the corporate office, he would just stay with my aunt and uncle. So one of his coworkers, Canadian coworker, we'll call him the Richard, about 5 years ago, he came to Texas for the first time, and my significant other brings him to the house and introduces us. Hey, how you doing? And he's going to be staying with us at my house because I have 2 guest bedrooms. Well, my significant other realizes, oh my goodness, I have made an appointment, and leaves me with this random strange man in my home for the night.
The whole night?
Yeah, he left. He left and wasn't coming back until the next morning.
Oh my God.
And so, although, I'm not exactly your basic wallflower, right? I've never met a stranger in my life. So I look over, I'm like, hey, you want a drink? And he's like, yep. So we just start, having the burr of friendship. Well, and so we're just talking. We immediately just became, it was like stepbrothers. Did we just become best friends?
Yep.
So he reaches over like this to get something off of the tabletop beside him, and his shirt kind of rose up a little. And he had this thing that looked like a pager. Well, we'd had quite a few burrs. And I made a joke. I'm like, oh my God, the 90s called, they want their pager back.
Oh, wow. No way. It's an insulin box.
Somebody boo that lady.
It was his insulin pump.
What was his reaction?
Oh, his reaction, oh, he was such a good sport about it. He's like, actually, that's my insulin pump. You know, I'm an unregulated diabetic. Anyway, so yeah, there's my embarrassing funny story. Oh my God. Well, then of course, you know, me being the kind of medical curiosity, never seen one, I'm like, okay, I need to have you answer all of the questions.
Yeah.
I need to know how it works. I need to know what it is.
What happened?
What happens?
How it works?
And it's amazing technology. It's Bluetooth to his watch. It checks his
Mhm.
blood glucose.
Yeah.
It automatically adjusts his insulin.
It's expensive.
He doesn't have.
Well, he's Canadian, so no, it's not.
Where's that
Got you,
like
got
that?
you.
Because it's
Is
universal
that-
healthcare.
I've just gotten so used to not having health
It's like-
care or
it's like
anything
a
like that.
Yeah, there's no such thing as GoFundMe medical care in Canada.
Oh.
It's all.
Oh,
So
that's-
does,
I need to move there.
does he not have to like prick his finger?
No.
He doesn't.
He does it for
He
him.
has a tiny little cannula that fits
It's like
in.
everything's electrical.
So it looks like a wire, like the size of a hair,
Mhm.
that he puts in, and then it stays in there for like 3 days, and then he changes it out, and it attaches to this sensory pack that has a vial of insulin, and the sensory pack constantly checks his glucose and then adjusts the insulin as needed.
Mhm.
So when
Did it beep?
no, it doesn't beep, but
No.
it is Bluetooth. He has a special
It gives them a
Apple Watch.
notification and it checks it
That's
out.
One of our friends
That's
did.
It's amazing. The technology is fabulous.
Mhm.
If he lived here, he would be on about $30,000 worth of insulin per month.
Mhm.
Yeah, if for America.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, that aside, diabetes. We're going to talk about this quite a bit. So in a nutshell, what happens is you got this stuff called insulin. So when you eat something, right, small intestines break it down, puts the Legos into the blood takes it to the liver converts it into glucose. Everyone following me so far?
Yes.
Liver converts it into glucose, sends it into the blood. Everyone gets paid. But the thing that gets the glucose out of the blood to pay the tissue is insulin. If you don't have insulin, the glucose can't get out of the blood. And then here's what happens. So then your tissues are like, hey,
No payment.
nobody's getting paid, and your body goes, oh no, calls Carl and says, hey, no one's getting paid.
No pay, no work.
Carl starts taking stored energy to the liver. The liver is converting it, dumping it into the blood. Can we get it into the tissue? Nope. So what happens? Call, hey, we're still not getting paid. We're breaking down more. Converting it, dumping it in the blood. What has now happened to the blood glucose?
We've got enough.
Way too much sugar. And when we break down large amounts of stored energy, we develop a condition called ketosis. Ketoacidosis, because you form these things called ketone bodies, which are acidic.
Mhm.
They change the pH of your body, send you into multi-system organ failure, and kill you. So that's the thing with diabetes.
That's not a good diet.
Yeah, that's why keto's really dangerous.
Yeah,
That's why
we're going to
diabetes
talk
is
about the
pretty
keto diet later
Yeah.
because it's super not good.
So diabetes is pretty much a strict diet.
So diabetes, there are two different types. There is insulin regulated, where you have no insulin production. But you also have a type of diabetes, so you have type 1 and type 2.
Mhm.
The other type of diabetes is where you're just simply not producing enough insulin. You are producing some, just not enough. So if you can slow the uptake of glucose into the blood, the amount of insulin that you're producing is enough to get it to the tissues, preventing that hyperglycemia. Hypoglycemia may be, one of the reasons for that is an overproduction of this stuff, because for every action you need what?
Counter reaction.
an equal and opposite reaction. So if I have insulin that lowers my blood glucose by taking the glucose out, putting it in the tissue, I also need something to do what?
To raise it up.
To raise it up. That's this stuff called calcitonin. And calcitonin, if you are deficient in that, then when my blood glucose starts to drop, yeah, all of our blood glucose, you feel it, you all have felt it,
Fatigue.
starts to drop, it starts pulling that adipose, converting it into glucose and dumping it into the blood. Well, if you don't have that hormone, that doesn't happen.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why you could have
So-
chronic hypoglycemia. Or you could just have no storage units, like our micro puppies, you know, the teacup chihuahuas and the little itty bitties. They don't have a storage unit to pull from. They're too small. So when their blood glucose drops, they've got nothing to dump into the blood.
That's why I got
And that's when they get the hypoglycemia, they get cold, they get seizures, and they can die.
My kids still takes like a some soda or take a candy right, like pop my sugar like that.
Absolutely. So gluconeo, see how I bring it back? Bring it back. Gluconeogenesis, you have the internal version where I'm breaking down stored energy, dumping that glucose into the blood. Or you have external gluconeogenesis, where I have eaten a cookie, I have eaten a meal, which jacks up my blood glucose. So that's kind of the internal and external gluconeogenesis.
See, now my older sister has to take the insulin to bring the sugar down. We're opposite.
Right, so she's diabetic. So the great thing about pet food is that they've kind of taken all the guesswork out of it for us. As I discussed pretty passionately yesterday, with the advent of the internet, people were able to start researching for themselves. And they started demanding a higher quality of pet food. And the pet food companies had no choice but to comply, for the most part. There are some, I mean, there is a base standard. But most of the ones, at least the good companies, go over and above that base minimum standard. We've even formulated for specific life stages. You have specific puppy food. And they've gone even further for small breed puppies, large breed puppies. Now, it's not that large breed and small breed puppies need any nutrients different, right? They need the proteins and the carbs and the fats to facilitate the energy to grow, to provide them with the building blocks. But obviously, large breed puppies need it in much higher amounts. And so that's what the big difference is between the two. And we are also looking at things that are not nutritional. The size of the kibble, how hard is the kibble, the density of the kibble. But ultimately, if you think about it, if I have a teacup chihuahua and a puppy Great Dane, right? They're both the same age. Let's say they're both 8 weeks old. Can I feed them both out of the same bag of puppy food?
No.
Okay.
I can, absolutely.
One will get more.
One will get higher amount. But size of kibble is going to be important because if the poor little teacup chihuahua can't get his mouth around the kibble, he's not going to be able to eat it.
Right.
The whole goal behind companion animal, meaning cat and dog nutrition, is to extend the quality of life and the quantity of life. And really remarkable stuff has happened over the last 20 years or so. We have extended the lives of our pets dramatically. As I said yesterday, we've extended the life of our felines so much, we had to add an extra life stage. That's just within my career time. That's not even within generations. That's within the time I have graduated from college to the time I am standing before you, add in a new life stage. We've added at least 5 to 6 years on average to our canine lives. That's simply because of nutrition. Food animal nutrition is complete opposite. We need to get them grown, filled out as quick as possible. The average lifespan for a beef cow is going to be about the age of 2. Usually by about 2 years old, they're ready to go to slaughter. So we really don't see the same nutritional, like the same type of research and development. We do still have research and development, obviously, But the whole goal behind food animal is to get them grown as quickly as we can and make them as big as we can get them. The whole host of things that I'll talk about when we get into protein. Oh, Lord, don't even get me started right now.
What about the dairy cows?
So dairy cows, they don't go to slaughter. You don't eat dairy cows. But dairy cows, oh Lord, now you've made me do it. Damn it. All right. But dairy cows, so we do want them to get grown and mature because mature cows don't give milk. But just like, so when, okay, I'm just doing it. All right, I'm just doing it. Okay. When do humans produce milk?
When they're lactating.
Or when they're giving birth.
When, after they've given birth.
I've seen a dude produce milk.
It's actually not milk.
That's weird.
It's not, now, it is a discharge.
Okay, so then is it pus or is it like
It's
an
not pus. That's a question for an after class.
infection? Okay, sorry.
No worries at all. I love that question.
I'm about to text him and tell him it's
But-
below my pus.
You know, it's not milk. It is, you can't nurse a baby on it. So here's the thing about our dairy cows though. So after the baby stops nursing, what happens?
Stop lactating.
You stop drying, you don't make milk anymore. But dairy cows, you continue milking them, and the stimulation of the udders
Right, continue
causes
lactating.
them to continuously produce
So
milk.
just like when moms like breastfeed up to 5 years old.
Yes, absolutely. No, 100%.
No, I'm used to
But
that.
here's the thing about our dairy cows. So yes, some of them will be used for breeding, but I really don't want all of my dairy cows to have to get pregnant in order to start the stimulation of milk production, do I?
Wait, does that mean that our friend claims his nipples what?
Joseph, come and see me after class about your lactating
I'm
friend.
sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It just registered.
It's not, he's not
He's
lactating.
not
Okay.
lactating.
He's not lactating.
It's a hormone, yeah.
Sure.
So what we do with our dairy cows is we do inject them with a special hormone that causes them to start
So
lactating
that's what-
even though they have not gotten pregnant.
That's that pseudo pregnancy, that false
It-
pregnancy deal. There you go, pseudoscience.
Now, it is not technically a pseudocyesis. It is simply a promotion of lactation. We have not fooled their body into thinking an egg has been planted. We have simply told their body, turn on the milking machine.
Just stimulated.
And so once it gets started, then the udder stimulation is what continues it. But it's the type of hormone that we give them, because guess what? You put the hormone into the cow, and then where does it go?
Into the stream.
Into the milk,
It's us.
into you.
Whoa.
And that's why now you see, you know, children who are 9 years old who are starting menstruation, and, you know, 10-year-old middle school boys with full beards. Yeah, I'm not, okay, so that's as far as I'm going into that whole shenanigans.
How long, like, do you want them? Like, that's what I meant.
Oh, you milk them for as long as you can.
No, but the nutrition, because you said he's trying not, like, it's not focused on them living for a long time.
So that's for beef cows. For dairy cows, they have a whole separate, they're almost like their own species.
Okay, so different system.
Yeah, they have a whole different nutritional support than beef cows. All right, so when we have our animals who have reached adulthood, we don't want them to gain weight. We don't want them to lose weight. Okay, this is not puppies. Puppies need to gain weight. I'm talking about adults and seniors. Technically, we don't want them to gain or lose. We call that a maintenance diet. You've probably seen that written on some of the pet food bags at the grocery, that you're feeding them a maintenance diet.
How are senior diets like it? If you said.
Yep, that's another rabbit hole. So I've got a whole lecture, I'm not glossing over that. I have a whole lecture over nothing but senior diets. So just put a pin in that. We will be covering the kind of shenanigans that happens with our senior diets. Maintenance diet, though, simply provides the amount of energy that the animal is using. If I use this much energy, I need to take in this much energy. If I take in more energy, where does the extra go? Storage unit, which means I'm gaining weight. Is that maintenance? Nope. If I'm using this much energy, but I'm only taking in this much energy, now I'm pulling stuff out. So I need to constantly be maintaining and monitoring.
So is that why they have the separate like dog food for active dogs?
Yes, absolutely, which has a higher calorie content. Now, there are some things that can affect the body, meaning that it makes the body use more energy. Heat, actually extreme temperatures. If you have extreme hot, extreme cold, your body's using a lot more energy, which means I've got to adjust the energy coming in to provide the maintenance. All of this stuff is just looking at, is it affecting the amount of energy up or down that my body is using? And if so, I need to adjust the amount of energy coming in to match. Heart rate, respiration, that's all taking energy. Everyone gets paid, just what we're looking at is how much are they getting paid. Minimal movement. And then of course, repair body tissues. When are we repairing body tissues? All of the time. All of the time you're repairing body. Even if you're not ill or injured, you're still having tissues being broken down and rebuilt and reformed. All of that is going to adjust our needs for maintenance. So how do we know if we are succeeding in fulfilling the nutritional needs? So this is pretty scientific. I'm going to tell you what I do for my own dogs, Maze and Poppy. Pretty medical. You ready? Okay. I don't know if you can wrap your brains around this procedure. And you are new, but I'm gonna, you know what? I think you can handle it. Like pet them. I pet them every day. I feel their bodies.
Make sure they're not overweight.
I know day to day, and those of you that have dogs and cats, you pet them. You ever notice like one day they feel like they're a little bit thin? Or then the next day you go pick them up and you're like, oh my God, you're a fat little tick. So guess what I do? I adjust the amount of food accordingly. Maisie is the worst of the two. She tends to fluctuate day to day, but so subtly, I'm probably the only person on the planet that would ever notice. But I'll just pet her. And if she's starting to feel like she's getting a little junk in the trunk, I just cut back on her food a little bit. If she's starting to get a little thin, I feed her a little bit additional. It's not rocket science.
You're just giving her your own PE.
Just giving her, and I don't change the diet. I just feed her a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on what I'm feeling. That's how we provide maintenance. Now, we do have some additional factors, internal and external factors, that can influence maintenance. And again, when I say influence maintenance, I'm referring to influencing the amount of energy being used. So activity, well, this is what I like to call a no duh. Active dogs are using more energy. What? If you have a dog that you are going home and you're taking them on a 4-mile hike, the dog that has to, get on the treadmill, the dogs that have like your border collies, your cattle dogs, the ones that are like super high strung, they are using more energy than Poppy and Maisie, who have probably gone back to bed by now. Maisie and Poppy go outside to go potty, and that's pretty much it. Poppy might tear around the backyard when she gets a wild hair every now and then. But that's it. That's their exercise. That's what they do. We're not going on any 7-mile hikes. Oh, Lord. 10 minutes in, I'd be dragging them both dead behind me. In fact, when I used to take, before I got Poppy and I still had Bentley, I did take them on the path because, I live right next door to this biking path. And so I'd take them around the lake, which is 1 mile. From my house back to my house is 1 mile on this path. No, it's one of the Brays Bayou. beautification, spillways, I don't know what it's called. So, but Bent and Maze, about halfway through, Bent was like, nope, I'm done. Because remember, he was a tripod. So it was really hard. And so I bought him a stroller. Because he's a 10-pound dog, which doesn't sound like a lot until you're carrying a 10-pound dog for half a mile. Yeah. A quarter of a mile into that half a mile, he now weighs 1,047 pounds. My arm is, dragging down to the ground. So yeah, I bought him a dog stroller. Pop them both in the dog stroller, and then I would just be
Are they older? That's why I did it, or just a brief?
Oh yeah, they're both
Oh, okay.
seniors.
Okay.
He was a senior at the time.
Oh.
So activity rather, not weather yet. Activity is going to affect your active dogs use more energy. So in order to maintain their weight, we're going to have to provide them with more energy. Weather, as I said, extreme hot, extreme cold is going to impact your body's thermoregulation. And thermoregulation takes a lot of energy. The overall health, obviously sick animals need more energy to repair those tissues. And holy smokes, stress. Stress is a sucker of energy. Stress uses up more energy and has more impact on the physical body systems probably than any other thing up here. You get your animals in, but we just got our animals in on Monday. First thing that happens is they all blow with stress diarrhea because stress impacts the GI tract. Well, if I now have animals that are stressed using energy, blowing with diarrhea using energy, but they've got diarrhea, which means their GI tract is impacted, impacting the energy that we're taking in. And that's where we get into some hiccups with the nutritional support of these animals the first week. Because they're sky high with the amount of energy that they're using, stress, tissue repair, damage, but we're also impacted on the amount of nutrition they can take in. I can feed them, but if their small intestines are inflamed, are they able to break down the Legos? Which means, can they use any of the nutrients? No. So I got an animal going sky high with the amount of energy that they need without the ability to provide it. So that first week that they're here is super uber important for us to provide them with that nutritional support that they need. Body size is another no duh. Small dogs need less calories than big dogs to maintain their weight. What? See how some of this is kind of common sense? Yeah. Young animals. Now, young animals do use their nutrients far more efficiently. Their body is set up to suck every last calorie out of that food. As they age, their ability to use the nutrients starts to diminish. So young animals use the nutrients way more efficiently than our adults or our seniors, but they also require more nutrients because they're growing and developing. And so we're going to need higher volumes of the vitamins, minerals, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, the energy and non-energy producing nutrients. Temperament. This kind of goes hand in hand with activity. If you have your high-strung, stressed out animals, like you have some animals that are just naturally stressed all the time.
Like you're hurting them.
Your herding dogs are, oh well, and they're stressed because they're bred to do a job.
So they're anxious. all
And
the
they're
time.
not doing the job,
So they're like
and they're freaking out because they're not doing the job.
shepherds.
Any of your herding dogs.
The Belgians, a lot of the Belgians are like that.
Oh my God, the Truvians are a train wreck. Mentally, they are very unstable if they're not an active working dog. The Belgian Truvian.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Um,
When you said they're not doing their job, like People can't take them out like the running and mix together.
Oh, they can, but the problem is that the majority of the time people get these dogs without researching them first.
Oh.
So they're like, oh, I love the look of a border collie. I love the look of a border collie, so I'm gonna get a border collie. And they live in a 900 square foot apartment.
Oh,
What?
okay. And it's
And suddenly you have this animal who is bred to be running on the fields, herding sheep,
They're
And-
so intelligent. that
and they're highly, highly intelligent. They are bred to work without instruction. So now you got a super, super smart dog that's bored, and what happens to bored, smart dogs? They get super destructive. They get very frustrated, and then it turns into aggression.
Okay.
Yeah, we just got a Great Dane rescue, and the lady who had it was scared of big dogs and surrendered it because it was a big dog. And I was like, if
Why
you're
did you
scared of
care?
big dogs,
Then a Great Dane is not the one to
yeah.
get.
And they were like, well, the puppy was small, and I was like, it's a Great Dane dog. It's not gonna stay that
Yeah.
size forever, no
That
matter
is
how
where-
much you feed it and all that stuff. You're gonna
That lesson that I taught you,
Stupid people.
Yeah, I was just like,
yeah,
Yeah, my friend, she has a lab and she's she's always bringing stuff. She brought a deck and set it in her bed. She's getting so mad. I said, that's what she's supposed to do.
what is the second word of her breed's
And
name?
then she was like, oh, well, I guess you're right. I said, she's gonna bring you stuff.
She's a retriever.
Like,
Her name is a Labrador Retriever.
brings things.
So we do have these animals that do tend to be higher strung. And this temperament, nervous breeds, well, nerves, if you're a nervous person, guess what that does to the energy? Burns it. It burns it. So we got to meet that. And then, of course, our productivity, couch potatoes. And then lactation and pregnancy. Now, this is a temporary change, obviously. How many days on average do cats and dogs gestate their puppies and kittens?
68.
You're close.
63.
63 days on average. They have 3 trimesters, 21 days. And these 21-day trimesters are different stages of fetal development. It's during the last 21 days that the majority of fetal development and growth takes place. So I've got to really jack up mom's nutrients because she is the one providing them the energy to grow and develop.
You feed your puppy food, right?
yeah,
Puppy food. And we're going to talk about that with the life stages because our puppies need like 28% protein. Adults only need 18%. But if a puppy needs 28 and a pregnant dog also needs 28, we just feed them a high quality puppy food. But you don't want to do that until the last 21 days because you're now feeding the 2 mesters before. If you're feeding them more energy than they need, we're going to end up with an overweight pregnant dog, and fat dogs don't give birth very easily. So we want to hold off until that last 21 days and then continue that through lactation.
Yeah.
Because again, puppies are growing machines. Newborn puppies will double their weight in the first week. That's insanity. Do you know, how long does it take? So baby human on average is what, like 8 pounds on average? How long does it take that baby human to become 16 pounds? Now imagine the volume of energy required to double your weight in a week.
Yeah.
And now multiply that by 2, 3, 5, 11, 13. Now you're starting to get an idea of the amount of energy that is leaving mom's body, and her body will sacrifice itself for the life of the
That and the
puppy.
fact that it's such a short period of time.
Yeah,
Compared to like humans, it's insane.
yeah. So lactation usually lasts about 6 weeks, and so we need to be meeting her nutritional needs for that time. Species also plays a role. Okay, I know this is gonna sound like a no duh. You cannot feed cats like they are little dogs. cats cannot be sustained on dog food. I have had owners to feed their cats and dogs out of the same bag of food. Because I'm not buying two different kinds of food. They can just both eat out of the same bag. I don't know why you put the redneck in my mind, but they can eat out of the same bag.
I feel like I know exactly what that just came to your mind.
Cats have very specific, and we'll get into the details of this, but physiologically, cats have different nutritional needs than any other animal on the planet. When I say cats are aliens, I am not making that up.
Super sensitive stomachs too.
They can, but they need things that dogs don't. For example, you don't have to write this down. I'm just going to throw some words out so you've heard them before. They need a higher amount of an amino acid called taurine.
Oh, what?
Taurine. You may have seen that. It's also in some of your energy drinks. Taurine, taurine. They need higher amounts of an amino acid called arginine. They are very sensitive to a water soluble B vitamin called niacin. They also are obligate carnivores, meaning that they have to eat meat-based protein. Well, dogs are omnivores and don't require higher amounts of taurine. They don't require higher amounts of arginine, and they need a different amount of niacin. So if I'm a pet food corporation, am I going to be putting higher amounts of those things into a dog food when the dog doesn't need them?
No.
No. So if I'm feeding my cat dog food, we're not getting the nutritional needs.
So people are supposed to make like vegan cat and dog food. Yeah. And so like in the end, that's like not good for your cat at all.
No, it will kill your cat. It will kill. That's not a, oh my God, he's so dead. No, kill your cat. It will cause him to have liver failure, hepatic lipidosis. I know I get very,
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you can only see half of my facial expression right now.
Yeah.
Say that word again, hepatic what?
Hepatic lipidosis, which is fatty liver disease. The liver will glom up with fat, the liver will shut down, the kidneys shut down, the animal will die a horrible, slow death.
Painful.
Yeah. So whenever we get like the all vegan food, we just throw it away.
There should never be, now, there can be vegan dog food.
Yeah. But like vegan
Because
cat
dogs
food.
can get, because the primary thing that you get out of animal protein is amino acids. Right? And we know how important amino acids are. But we can get some amino acids from plant material. But dogs' physiological makeup is similar to ours, where they have some amino acids that they get from plants and some that they have to get from animals, just like us. Cats, though, have all of their amino acids that they have to get from meat-based proteins. And so that's why legally there could never be technically a vegan commercial cat food, because we have two government agencies that oversee this. On the national side, we've got the FDA. On the state side, we've got AFCO. And they give out the bare minimum feeding requirements that meet the animal's nutritional requirements. You have to meet those bare requirements to label your food complete and balanced. And if your food is not complete and balanced, you can't sell it.
That's why all that stuff makes sense.
Because dogs can be allergic to meat, right?
Dogs can develop a meat allergy, a food allergy, which is an immune response, different from intolerance. Food allergy is where I eat the beef, my immunity group goes, oh my God, stranger danger, and attacks the beef like it's COVID. So what we have to do is either change the protein or alter the protein so my body no longer recognizes it. I got a whole lecture about food allergy that we're going to talk about.
And so like cats, like you said, they're carnivores. You can keep them on a diet all you want, but if they want to go out and eat that lizard or that rat or that bird, they're gonna, because that's a natural.
Absolutely.
Right? So that doesn't
Hardcore.
affect them, though. Okay.
And not usually unless there's a diseased thing that they're eating. Anyone who's ever been in any kind of health class has seen this. Now this is very old, right? This is the nutritional pyramid. For humans consumption, this has changed. But for what we need right now, it's pretty great. And this shows kind of the amounts needed in the diet. Down here, the highest amount nutrient is water. Water is the most important nutrient. Next, we have carbohydrates. That's the second highest nutrient we need in our diets. Then we have our proteins, which are giving us our amino acids, which are creating RNA, DNA, and all the proteins in our bodies. Then we have fats. And then the smallest two are going to be our minerals and our vitamins. And the great thing about vitamins is our bodies are capable of making some of these for ourselves. They can take other structures like our Legos and then make a vitamin. So our carbohydrates, these are going to be what we start with. They're broken down into simple sugars, monosaccharides. Fats are broken down into triglycerides and fatty acids. Proteins are broken down into amino acids. So what we're talking about is these are the Legos. Amino acid is the Lego. Monosaccharide is the Lego. Fatty acid is the Lego.
That's just all the stuff they need, and that's where they get it from?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then here's our non-energy producing nutrients, water, vitamins, and minerals. We don't have to break these down. These are already in a Lego that our body can use. But super important, vitamins. Oh my goodness, we have fat and water soluble vitamins. They do, not necessarily important. They do stuff like keep you from bleeding out of every orifice, like your eyes, your nose, your skin. We have one that helps regulate the calcium and phosphorus, which are two minerals which have some jobs. Calcium, we know one job of calcium.
The bones, right?
Build strong bones. But holy smokes, does calcium do a whole lot of other crap in your body? It's what allows our muscles to contract. Without calcium, our muscles don't contract. We're just a flaccid puddle on the floor. Without calcium, our nerves will not transmit impulses. It's a neurotransmitter. Calcium helps us clot if we've been injured. But calcium does a whole lot of stuff.
Do you know, like, when athletes, they get to drink the juice or whatever before the game to prevent cramps, like, what's preventing, like?
So that's not calcium, that's potassium.
Okay, that's, yeah, I was like. it's
Because when we
sometimes
start
alarming.
talking about muscle contraction and nerve transmission, you guys, when you get into like the nervous system, you're going to talk about the sodium potassium pump. And without the sodium potassium pump, you don't have the nerve transmission that tells the muscles to contract. So that's potassium. But calcium does this crazy thing. So your muscles are fibers, right? Fibers inside fibers. You guys are doing muscles right now, I think. So you have actin and myosin fibers. And what we want is for these, so they're like this. And what we want is for that muscle, these fibers to ratchet against each other and contract the muscle towards the middle. But the problem is that there's this little gateway barrier in between them that's preventing them from doing that. Calcium comes in and binds with the gate, opens the gate, and allows them to interact. So if you don't have calcium, the gate never opens.
So calcium's like your lock and key type of deal.
Oh, kind of. What it does is it binds with this special protein and changes its shape so we can interact. It's a whole thing. You guys are gonna talk about troponin and tropomyosin, and it's a whole thing. Tell me when you do, and I will tell you the story. Oh yeah, I have a whole play that I put on. Yeah, it's a thing.
So tomorrow we start cards.
Well, we've got time. I'm gonna get started on that.
Ms. Hope,
Yeah.
where is the tunica intimate?
The tunica intima is the innermost layer of your artery.
Okay, that's what I got confused. I had asked Ms. Smith earlier if it had anything to do with the epimysium after we get down to that very muscle layer, but they actually blood vessels. and that's
Yeah,
why
it's actually, so, just before you, so you have three if you rule of three, right? Your arteries are more elastic than your veins. There are 3 layers. The innermost layer, tunica just means layer.
Right, and it's intima, it's.
Intima, media, and advencia.
Right, that's the one that I have.
Here's how we remember this. I'm gonna give you a tech tip. So Joseph was just asking me before I get into carbs about the 3 layers of the arteries. Right, the outermost layer is the tunica advencia, the media, and the intima. All right, so tunica just means layer. So how I remember advencia, I have to go outside to have an adventure. And if I want to get intimate, where should I go?
Inside.
I should go inside. That's how and then media means middle.
Middle.
So that's how I remember intima is inside. I want to get intimate, I go inside. I want to go on an adventure, I go outside.
The only reason I asked is because I thought it had some type of relation to muscle fibers, and I think the only reason I thought that is because the last PowerPoint that I've seen on any arteries kind of look like fibers, and that's how they were describing them.
Right.
I think it was on the YouTube video that Duke does.
Right, what you're talking about are the layers of the arteries. But when you're discussing things like epimysium, that is muscle.
Right, the endomysium, epimysium, and the paramysium.
Right. And then the fascia.
This guy's stomach looks like it's painful.
All right.
My boyfriend's dad.
Let's just we've got about 10 minutes left. So we're going to just start carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. Every PowerPoint is kind of put together the exact same way. We talk about what the nutrient does. Then we'll discuss what happens if we don't have it, what happens if we have too much. Carbs, well, it's an energy producing nutrient. Okay, that's very important that you remember which 3 produce energy, which 3 do not. Carbs, fats, protein, energy producing. Water, vitamins, minerals, non-energy producing. That will be a question on your test. So carbohydrates are energy producing nutrients, therefore they produce energy. They are a source of glucose. Carbohydrates are just complex big sugars. And so our body can break them down, convert them into glucose, and then what is glucose used for? Everyone gets them paid. We have simple and complex. So simple would be things like monosaccharide, disaccharide, polysaccharide, which is more than 2 sugars bonded together. And then our complex would be an example of fiber. Fiber is included in this category. Now, we don't get a whole lot of nutrition from fiber, right? You can't go out and eat some hay and expect to live, right? You can't. But what fiber does for us is amazing. Number 1, it gives us amazing poop, right? It does. It bulks up our stool, helps our colon, provides nutrition for our colonocytes, fiber. But the other thing that fiber does is because it is very, very difficult for our bodies to try and break down. In fact, our bodies don't really break it down. It slows down digestion, right? Because our small intestinal boys are now like enthralled with this fiber. And they're like, oh, I want to break this down. And it slows everything down, which then slows the uptake of glucose into the blood. And that will prevent the blood glucose from going sky high right after eating. If I can slow down the rate that glucose goes into the blood, then I don't have that hyperglycemia. The other thing that fiber does is because it sits in the stomach much longer and it sits on the intestines much longer, makes you feel full longer. So very beneficial for animals who are on a weight loss diet. Because the reason why weight loss diets fail is because of client compliance. The dog is begging for food, begging for food. Oh Lord, I know when Maisie and Poppy start begging for food. I'm like, oh, Jesus. All right, fine. I'll feed you. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. Just to get you off my back. It's irritating. Client compliance. If I can make the animal feel full longer without giving them calories, bonus. So that's going to be our complex carbohydrates. And any excess obviously gets converted into adipose. Now, we don't want to, okay, no, not going down that one. We want to make sure that we're feeding the right carbohydrates. There are some carbohydrates, some sugars, that your body takes a look at it and goes, oh, this is fabulous. We're going to use this right now. This is amazing. Let's send that out for the troops to have. There are other sugars that your body looks at it and goes, okay, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You're going directly to the storage unit. Unfortunately, the type of sugar that goes directly to the storage unit is the type of sugar that makes stuff taste good. Fructose. You've all heard, probably stay away from high fructose meals or high fructose food. Fructose is a sugar. It's not bad for you, but it does go immediately to the storage unit. So we need to be feeding the right kind of carbs. Where we get into danger is when people start just randomly eliminating carbs. Can't do that. Nutrition is a house of cards, house of cards. Everything has to be in perfect harmony in amounts in order for everything else to work. So if I'm missing one, the whole house comes crumbling down. And that's when you start seeing multi-system organ failure and nutritional death. So here are some of our simple sugars. These are a few examples of our monosaccharides. This would be a great matching question. Wink, wink. Shrug, shrug. Glucose, fructose, galactose, and ribose. These are the Legos. These are the individual Legos that I'm going to use to build more complex sugars. And these are the individual Legos that my body is able to use for currency and that I can use to build other structures within my body. If you remember a million years ago, at least a million years ago, back when we were discussing the phospholipid bilayer, do you remember that carbohydrate, sugar, was one of the big molecules that embedded itself in the phospholipid bilayer to help with rigidity and maintenance of that bilayer? This is the building blocks that do that. So these are our monosaccharides. These are our single Lego sugars. All of our other sugars are going to be these four in different configurations bonded together.
Lactose, is that like milk?
Yeah, so galactose is one of the simple sugars that does make up lactose. Because lactose is a disaccharide. Remember, we got to break the bond, and galactose is the sugar that bonds and makes lactose. This is by no means all of the disaccharides. This is just an example. Like here we have sucrose. Sucrose is one glucose and one fructose bonded together. We have to break the bond in order to separate them. Maltose is two glucoses. We get that from plants. And then lactose is a sugar, a glucose, and a galactose bonded together. And then we got to break the bond, and then we are able to utilize these two monosaccharides. And then anything that has more than two is called a polysaccharide. Now, polysaccharide could be 3, it could be 15. The more bonds the sugar has, the more energy my body has to use to break the bonds. That makes sense, doesn't it? Like my body's going to use more energy to break 5 bonds than it does to break 1 bond. So when I am looking at things like the obese management diet, I want to feed the right kind of carbs. I want to feed polysaccharides because now my body's using a lot more energy to get the energy. which means there's not as much energy left over. So I'm giving myself kind of a little internal workout when I'm feeding these polysaccharides.
And does that break down fat?
So this is carbohydrates.
Right, we'll be using that energy. Does it, what? Okay, I think you're gonna answer it for others.
So when we get to fats, we'll talk about, because fats have a whole other process to break down and then get shipped off.
I asked the question completely incorrectly. So on one of the workout regimens that I used to be on, they recommend, consumption of complex sugars and complex fats. And my question should have been phrased, when those complex sugars are being broken down, is the same energy that's being used to break down fat?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. The energy being used to break down any of these nutrients. So we gotta just look at our gauge. So if I eat this much calories, but it's taking me this much energy just to break this down, that's great for weight management, because I gotta pull out extra and I haven't even started maintaining the body yet.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're talking about. These sugars also include things like starches. Starches is a medium complex sugar. Things like potatoes, pasta, bread. And then, of course, you have fiber, which is going to be your corn. Thank you, oats. Beet pulp is a very common one used in animal food. Beet pulp.
So that's why corn is hard to digest.
Corn is fiber, and it's very hard to digest. Now, is corn in dog food necessarily a bad thing? No, it's not, because we need fiber in our diet. Corn is oatmeal is also a common.
Bone meal.
Oh, now bone meal is going to be more in the amino acids and the minerals, because you get your calcium, your phosphorus, and your magnesium from it.
Is bone meal bad?
No.
I've always heard that if it's got bone meal in it, it's not good.
Oh, no. Okay, so we're going to talk about the difference between meat meal, byproducts, and bone meal. I got a whole lecture over that. Oh, Lord, you guys are in for a treat. You guys are just like, I need to know everything right now.
I want to know what to feed my dog.
All right, so we're going to pick it up here on tomorrow.